Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome to another episode of the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. My name is Jeremy Betts, and I'm excited to be here with you, joined by my man Daniel J. at State of Steelers. Excuse me. How you doing, Daniel? What's going on?
I'm doing great, man. Enjoying this long weekend. Looking forward to next weekend. It's finally here, man. Pittsburgh Steelers, real football against a former opponent. I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the title of this show. It's getting real out here, Steeler Nation. We are getting down to actual business. By this time next week, we'll be talking about a hopefully Steelers W, but a Steelers game nonetheless. And we'll be talking about how this offense looked that we've been waiting to see in real-time action all year long. If they can carry over some of what we saw from training camp and the preseason into a big game right off the bat. This is a contender on the NFC side for the Super Bowl right out of the gate. This is the third year in a row, pretty much, that the Steelers have jumped out against, an actual Super Bowl contender. The last two, they've come away victorious. Can they do it a third year? Danny, how you feeling about this week of preparation the Steelers got going on before game time?
I like it. I think that the Steelers are still a little bit of a dark horse amongst most of the NFL talking heads that obviously aren't watching or following Pittsburgh Steelers all full time, right? And I think this is a good opportunity for the team to go out there and show that they have progressed, that they have made that leap forward. A lot of attention is going to be on Kenny Pickett and seeing if he's also made that jump. I've liked what he's done in preseason up to this point. All he's done is put touchdowns out there, 5 drives, 5 TDs. I want to see that translate into, actual, Sunday football games that are going to be showing up in the real time. But yeah, I'm excited about the opportunity and the for the team and about the challenge that they have, because the 49ers run an offense that is it's fast, it's quick, but the last time the Steelers played them with Minka Fitzpatrick's first day out there, I'm by myself, and it was Minka Fitzpatrick's first time, as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he ended up with a crap ton of turnovers, and it ended up being a game where, the Steelers ended up losing. They had that whole situation with Mason Rudolph being the quarterback, and Ben Roethlisberger being lost that year. But the reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers were in that game was because of the defense, and I think this defense is going to show up to this challenge as well. I've liked the pieces they put together. The newest Desmond King, great pickup in my opinion, and I don't know what's going on. Great pickup in my opinion, and so I think that this defense going up against the 49ers offense is going to be a great challenge, and I, for one, like the fact that Birdie is back, because I want to beat this team. I want the Steelers to beat this team while they have their best players on board. I hope you're here to stay this time.
I hope so too. I don't know why my computer keeps kicking me out. But hey, I'm back and hopefully here to stay. I caught, most of what you said there, and I agree. It's just time to see it translate. Time to see everything translate over into regular season ball. You like the additions they've made. You like the team they've put together in Pittsburgh. Let's see it in action. Thank you to all of our listeners. We've got our regulars in here. We got Afton. We've got Jared Devil. We got Brian Brown, Robert Cotting, Jersey Boy 70, Claude Bishop. A bunch of you guys in here. Thank you so much for hopping in and joining in the conversation. It's going to be a season to remember in Pittsburgh, no matter what, because the hype is getting real in Steelers Nation, and the national media is starting to come on to the fact that, yes, this might be a dark horse team that can be a little bit better than maybe we thought they could going into this year. We're seeing still, just the continued growth from this team, and Kenny Pickett starting to get on people's radar. I think that's the big deal. So we'll see how it plays out, but let's get to our first question here on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. That's what we're doing here. So get your questions in. We want to answer those about the upcoming week, about the upcoming game, about the Steelers in general. Get those in. Afton always asking good questions. Do you think Mason Rudolph stays on this team? I do, she says. What do you think there?
I think he does, but I think that the Steelers pick up the phone if somebody calls. All right. I think he's a backup number 2 quarterback quality, maybe even a bridge quarterback, somewhere in the league. For him to be our third quarterback is a blessing for the Pittsburgh Steelers because most teams don't have two quality backup quarterbacks and one great quarterback as a starter. And so, you know, we saw what the 49ers went through last season in the playoffs with their quarterback situation. And, the Steelers are going to end up wanting a situation where they have a good backup quarterback, especially because Kenny has missed a couple of games. And, if the Steelers want to make a deep run, if there is a situation where, the Steelers end up having their quarterback go down for a game or two, having those backup quarterbacks would be essential. And with Mason Rudolph, he's been on the team the longest as far as the quarterback room, knows the offense probably as good as Kenny. And I wouldn't say as more because I don't think they opened up the book for him. But I do think that he knows this offense more than Mitch Trubisky. And I'd argue to say that if need be, I think I'd rather see Mason Rudolph in there than Mitch Trubisky.
I don't know if I've gotten to that point on Mitch Trubisky. I think that he can still go out there and be serviceable more so than Mason Rudolph, in my opinion. But I think the biggest reason you keep him on this team is that third quarterback rule now, where he can dress and get a helmet on game day and not count against the 53 or against the active roster. That's a big deal. And that third guy you want with some experience if you're Pittsburgh, especially considering Kenny Pickett's concussion history. Mitch Trubisky, I guess, not so much of an injury history that I can recall, but still you like to have that emergency quarterback on hand, and you like to have it be a guy who can actually deal the football. I think Mason can do that in game action if called upon. But this is a team that's going to have a lot of growing to do throughout the season as well once you get into this. So what we've seen so far out of everybody, quarterbacks, anybody, what we've seen out of them so far is just the tip of the iceberg, because this team's going to have to adjust on the fly throughout the season. There's going to have to be a lot of different pieces moving in and out because of injuries and things like that. So the more depth that you have, quality depth that you have, the better you are. And that goes the same at the quarterback position when you're talking, do you keep Mason Rudolph on the roster? Let's pull up this question here from Jeff Hewitt. What do you think the placement is with Robinson and Austin week 1 in that slot wide receiver role? 80-20, Robinson getting 80% and Austin getting 20%. It's a good question. Do you have a thought on this, Daniel?
I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. I think that Austin's going to see a few more plays. And I don't know if he's just going to be in the slot either. I think that Austin's going to be replacing, Deontay and even George Pickens when the time comes for them to get a rest. I think that he has that ability to play on the outside. In fact, that was his position in college. So I think that Austin's going to get quite a bit of plays, more than 20%. I don't know if Robinson's going to play 80%. He might, but I don't think so. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Calvin Austin's going to see a good bit of work in the slot. And Allen Robinson could come in on the outside in some situations as well. So I think the snap share won't always be, a 1-for-1 on these guys, where Calvin Austin comes in and that means Allen Robinson's going out. So, I would say that you're looking at probably maybe closer to a 60-40 snap count potential to Allen Robinson, and that's in the slot, I would say. And then you might see Allen Robinson play a little bit more on the outside. I don't think you're putting Calvin Austin on the outside very much, but who knows? Maybe as a stretch the field guy on some, if you're down in your own end and you want to keep the defense honest. But yeah, it's going to be very true very quickly that this skill position group, especially the pass catchers, is going to be rotating a lot. There's going to be a lot of bodies in there all the time.
During preseason, I felt like Austin played more on the outside than in the slot. In fact, his deep pass from Mason Rudolph was on the outside.
Yes. It was.
And
Yeah, I
so,
think
I mean,
I would consider that more of like I don't know, and maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but just the fact that you're swapping out teams, first team, second team, third team, and maybe on the second team he is more of an outside receiver when you're running other guys in there. But I don't know. It could be that he sees some work on the outside that I'm not giving him credit for as well.
yeah, and like another person that I had a maybe not a concern, but I'm thinking that maybe he's not going to see the field as much as we think, and that's Joey Porter Jr. I saw him in with the first team defense throughout
Yeah.
preseason. He was with the backups. I would have thought that they would have wanted to work him in a little bit with the first team if they're going to utilize him in the first team. And then the Steelers go out and get Desmond King. I think that might be more there than we anticipate.
That's a good thought. I know Desmond King has played in the nickel a lot recently, but yeah, anytime you bring in a player with that level of experience, you'd expect him to be vying for important snaps pretty quickly. But the Steelers also have played things a little different this year. They're willing to go out and get some vets at depth positions to back up some of their younger players, and so we'll see how Joey Porter Jr. shakes out. I think you'll see the field a few snaps this week, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's very few, and that Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson are holding down the fort in week 1 for sure. And then as the season progresses, so does Joey Porter Jr.'s playing time on the defensive side of the ball. That's something to monitor for sure. I want to pull this one up here from David Sears. It says, if Pickett stays healthy for the season, I 100% believe we will be Super Bowl bound. Your thoughts, please. I don't know if I'd crown us the AFC champs quite yet with a healthy season from Kenny Pickett. There's a lot of good teams in here, but I do like their potential as a playoff team, and I obviously think that they could go out there and win a playoff game, but we're going to have to see. I'm hopeful that this team can put together a special season, but I don't know if Super Bowl bound is quite on the table yet. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, I always say anything can happen, right? But
absolutely, that's true.
I think if the Steelers were to be Super Bowl bound, they have to be more than Pickett that's staying healthy. I think many of your key components on defense have to stay healthy as well. Your offensive line. I think you have some, leeway here and there on certain parts because there's some good depth. You have Nate Herbig on the offensive line that can come in, and I think he is starter capable. So, if one of the guards goes down, detrimental loss, right?
Yeah.
The receiver room. I think George Pickens is probably the guy that can do things the most special. Deontay can get open better than anybody, but I think, Calvin Austin can create that space that Deontay Johnson does with his speed versus his route running ability. So I think that if Deontay went down for a little bit, it's not detrimental. But, like last year, TJ Watt goes down.
Yeah,
it was bad. Now this year, I think that the Steelers would be okay if there was a problem or, Alex Highsmith or TJ go down for a couple of games with their depth now. But, middle linebacker is still a question mark. We haven't seen it yet. It's completely new. So I think it depends on health on both sides. And if that ends up happening, there's a chance. But I think that this is a team that can I'll put it this way. I think that the Steelers can beat every team in the NFL, not like it was last year. Last year, you didn't feel that way.
Right.
Going into Buffalo, it felt like it was going to be a game that was going to be a long day, and it was a long day. I don't feel that there's going to be any long days this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think that if on their game, that they can beat any team. And, we'll see if that ends up being the situation.
Yeah, that staying healthy, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is the key. If the defensive playmakers stay healthy, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, I would say those are the key cogs for sure. If they stay healthy for the majority of the season, and then your quarterback stays healthy, then I don't know if there are any other real Jenga pieces where you pull that person out for a length of time and the team falls apart. I think that they've done a good job building up enough depth surrounding these players to withstand some some bad injury luck. I even agree, or I even believe that on the offensive line, where I think that they're a couple players deep there that can provide at least get you out of a tough situation potentially without killing you. If Dan Moore Jr. comes down, you trust Broderick Jones to step in and provide serviceable play at left tackle. And if Mason Cole goes down, then I think the team and we should trust as well that Nate Herbig can jump in there and provide solid snaps at center. So it's going to be something to watch, obviously, how the Steelers play those injuries, but fingers crossed, knock on wood, whatever you want to do, let's keep those injuries to a minimal as well throughout the season. That'll go a long way to getting where we want. But it's going to be an interesting ride this year for sure. We're going to take a quick break here. And then when we come back, we're going to give you a little bit of the contest information that's still going on through tomorrow. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on the audio side. If you're listening to us live, watching us live on YouTube, we're not going anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. Got some exciting stuff going on at fansfirstsports.com, the new home of the Steel Curtain Network and all of our podcasts, as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers editorial page where a lot of our podcasters put out articles and columns regarding the team and others. And this is a Fans First Sports Network wide contest. So listen up. This is an awesome opportunity if you are looking at the potential of going to the game this weekend, whatever game you're wanting to go to. Attention sports fans, are you a fan of an NFL team? If you're listening to this show, I think you probably are. Would you love to attend your favorite team's week 1 game? Well, you're in luck. Fans First Sports Network is giving away 4 free tickets to the week 1 NFL game of your choice, up to $5,000. Those are some dang good tickets, if you ask me. The rules to enter are simple. Step 1, go to contest.fansfirstsports.com, fill out the appropriate information on that page, submit it, and then step 2, find us on Facebook and like our page. That will get you an entry into the contest. September 4th is the deadline. And once you've done that, you'll be officially registered. What are you waiting for? Go enter for your shot at seeing your favorite team live in person in action. Again, the contest ends on Monday, September 4th. So get that in tonight just to be safe. Don't wait around at a chance to get your free tickets. 4 free tickets. Take your friends, take your family, up to $5,000 cash value. Good luck to you. If you listen to this show and you win, let us know next week, and we will be glad to share that time with you guys, and we hope you win it. All right, let's get back to the task at hand. Every week we get questions about the roster buildup on this show, and I like it because I think fans are more in tune to the offseason and roster building than they've ever been in sports, specifically since I've been following the Steelers and the NFL. And so Joseph here asks a very good question. Do you think Omar Khan is content with the makeup of the team as is, or will he have some surprises for us down the road? Daniel, what do you think about this question here?
I don't think it's the 53 that's going to be available. They're really heavy in the cornerback room right now. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gets dropped, like a James Pierre, and then somebody brought in, but not really a surprise. Maybe a Kwiatkowski or some another middle linebacker that can play special teams could come in. But yeah, I think that the Steelers are still kind of heavy in the cornerback room. I can see a move for maybe one getting dropped and somebody else being brought in, but I don't think there's anything major going to be happening unless there's an injury and something needs to happen.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It would have to be an injury, I think, kind of like they did bringing in the linebacker Williamson from the Jets a couple seasons ago, making a trade. That would probably be what you would see, if anything. So I don't think there's going to be really any more signings. The 16-man practice squad is full. They signed 3 more players today, Sunday, to fill that out. So yeah, I think that they're set. I think they're ready to rock and roll heading into week 1, and then we'll see how it plays out after that. You never know with Omar Khan, though. I think that's the beauty of this thing. Fans are excited about that. Is what if some big name player is just not content where he's at? Do the Steelers pull off a trade like they did with Minka Fitzpatrick a couple years ago? I don't know that was Kevin Colbert, but Omar Khan has proven to be, hey, we're gonna jump on opportunities and make the most of situations, and so I think that could be in play, but we don't know. You never know. That's what makes part of this exciting. So we will stay tuned to how this is all going. Let's see here. Trying to find.
I do want to say about that though, about Minka's trade. There was a huge glaring need for safety. That's
very true.
There's not that much of a huge need for this team currently. So that's why I don't really think that something like that is going to happen this year unless there's a huge injury. And the team is in position to make a run, then maybe perhaps there's a trade.
Sure, that would be the key too. Where are they sitting? What's the record?
Yeah.
And, what is the entirety of the situation? It's not just, hey, good player might be available, let's make a phone call. So I'm sure that they will take their time and make sure that they do things appropriately as they typically do. Another question from Afton. Does anyone on the practice squad surprise you? I was going to say maybe Hot Rod Wilson, or I'm sorry, Hot Rod, what is it? Rod Williams, I think is the tight end potentially.
Rodney Williams.
Yeah, Rodney Williams. That's right. They called him Hot Rod in camp. So, yeah, I think that was a surprise to me that they brought him back instead of Gentry. But that is something to watch too. Gentry may end up back. I don't think he's signed with a team yet that I've heard. So that's something to watch there. But Rod Williams looked really good in preseason and in training camp. The team liked what they saw out of him. A very athletic guy. That was probably the biggest surprise to me, though. I thought that they would be bringing back Gentry on the practice squad, but instead they went with this tight end. Does anybody else stand out to you, or is this pretty standard operations for the Steelers here?
Brandon Fihoko. I was surprised that he made it back to the practice squad. I thought that he was talented enough to be on somebody's 53-man roster. And, I think that the defensive line room is pretty deep this year. And, Terrell Austin came out earlier alluding that they were going to lose somebody out of the defensive line that could play on Sunday. And I agreed with him. I agree that Brandon Fehoko was a guy that could be, on the 53, even get a hat on Sundays. But, he ends up being the guy that gets cut. I figure that somebody's going to pick him up. Nobody does, and he ends up back with the Steelers in the practice squad. But that doesn't mean that he'll be there long. When you're on the practice squad, you can get signed away very quickly. Right. So we'll see how long he stays on there.
Right. Defensive tackle, defensive lineman injuries are regular things across the league. So a guy of his experience and caliber and the specialization of the position he plays, kind of being a true nose tackle, if you will, run stuffing nose tackle, that's going to play into it as well. If a team loses their nose tackle and they need help, watch out. Braden Fehoko might not be long for the Steelers practice squad. That's a good point there. I wasn't thinking about him, but you make a very good point in that situation there. Let's talk this question from Christopher 11, kind of going back to the hype surrounding this team and how far can they go. When you look at the schedule, though, this question has some merit to it based on the teams that they'll play over the next few weeks, especially leading up into the bye. So Christopher 11 says, if we stomp the Niners, do you believe we're off to the races? What do you think, Daniel?
I think it's a huge jump in momentum in a positive way. It's a team that basically all offseason, the Steelers are underdogs and not given a chance, regardless of who the quarterback was. And regardless if Bosa ends coming back to the team, this team was supposed to be too high powered for the Steelers to handle. So the Steelers come out here and stomp them to the ground. And with Brock Purdy back and let's just say Bosa does end up signing some sort of deal, or he comes in and plays, first week of one. I would prefer that. I would prefer them to be at their best. And then at that point, I think it is a statement, especially after having the the Steelers' first team offense and defense had throughout the entire time. It's basically confirmation that that wasn't a fluke or just, preseason being preseason, and that this team is really, really ready to make a run.
Yeah, I can just see the headlines across the national media and the graphics on the screens. Time to buy the Steelers after a big week 1 win, and you'll see Kyle Brandt and Good Morning Football talking about they tried to warn us in the preseason, and now they come out and stomp the Niners. It's time to believe in this team. I think that would get Steelers fans going, but we've had some comments where people were saying that they would prefer the Steelers stay under the radar in the national media. I don't have necessarily a preference one way or the other. I like to hear my team being talked about in the national media. That's just me. But I think, you beat the 49ers in your place as the Steelers, and then you got to host the Browns on Monday Night Football. That's going to be tough. The Browns have proven to be a tough opponent for the Steelers the last few years in primetime games, especially. So the Steelers will have their hands full there. That's a tough matchup too. Let's not overlook that one. But then you've got Raiders, Texans, a game against the Ravens. I think if you get to the bye week at 3-2, at the very least, I think you're in really good shape for the rest of the season. But 4-1 is on the table. 5-0 is definitely on the table. So we'll see how it goes. I could see this team being off to the races, especially once you get to the middle portion of the season, where you get some teams like Rams, Titans, Packers, Cardinals in that stretch. That's going to be an area where the Steelers are going to have to win games if they want to make the play. That's the big thing. If you want to make the playoffs in the AFC this year, you can't lose games. You just can't do it. I don't even know if 10-7 guarantees you a wild card spot. You'll need tiebreakers still at double digit wins, I think, in this AFC. We'll see. But that's going to be something to watch for sure as we move forward.
As far as the going under the radar thing, do you see Kenny Pickett and George Pickens having the attitude of not being in the spotlight or having that pressure in front of them? I feel like if this team is who we want them to be, they should handle the pressure very well, and being in the spotlight shouldn't make them weaker. If anything, That should increase their ability. I would prefer to have players who rise to the pressure versus fold under it. And I think these are players that are going to rise to it. And I don't think they have the attitude of, let's not have people talking about us. I think look at us kind of attitude. Najee Harris as well.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. It reminds me of the 5-star matchup because we're in it days, where I think that's the kind of swag this team can have with the players that they've got. And Kenny Pickett just embodies that to me. And when you saw him struggle in early portions of games last season, but then you saw when the chips were down, he just put it together. He put the team on his back, took him down the field, and won football games. And obviously relied on some of his playmakers as well throughout that stretch. But this is a team built for this, I think. And whether or not when they get to the playoffs they can hold up against really good teams in a one and done situation. We'll see how that goes. Mike Tomlin hasn't proven that he can necessarily put his team in position to win those games. So there's going to be a lot of questions to be answered over the course of this season. And when you get to the playoffs specifically, sure, great, you made the dance, but Steelers fans want more than that. Just making the playoffs isn't going to be good enough for this fan base this year. And I mean, if you win a playoff game, I think then it's ahead of schedule probably for what you were wanting it to be in 2023. But still, that's the minimum. That's the minimum requirement here for Steelers fans, I think, is win a playoff game. We'll see if they can do it. Let's pop this question up here. Another one from Afton. Do you think DJ has a comeback season? I'm all in on the Deontay Johnson comeback season. I think he's going for over 1,000. I don't know if the touchdown numbers are going to be huge. I see 3 or 4 touchdowns probably on his plate, but just because the Steelers have so many other red zone targets. But I think that they'll be a little bit more explosive, that they're going to be better at handling defenders out in space as blockers this year. And I think that springs Deontay for maybe some longer scores, but I think that he's going to be right up there. And so if he's not at 1,000 yards, it's going to be very close. And that means George Pickens probably goes off. So one of these two guys is going to lead the team in receiving, and it's going to be for over 1,000 yards. So I'm all in on this Deontay Johnson comeback season, and that's the offensive line improving, that's a running game improving, and a quarterback improving to really make this unit go. What are your thoughts?
I think he has a very good season. I actually I did some predictions on my own, and I predicted that Deontay would probably be team MVP after the end of this season. He's a guy that I think that is going to end up getting a lot of the balls thrown to his direction. Now, I know that George Pickens is going to make those highlight catches and things, but I don't know if he's there yet as being a number one wide receiver, and an ability that Deontay has to get open. And I just think that he's going to have a huge year this year. And I think he's going to have more than just a comeback year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like I said, I even picked him in fantasy football this year as my receiver. So
wow, okay,
there you go. Deal. I need him to have a good year.
Right. That is that you're staking your claim on that one, doubling down by drafting him. I missed out on him and George Pickens in my most recent fantasy draft. I was really trying to go for George Pickens, but he was taken probably 2 rounds earlier than most would. I think somebody was trying to get him before I did, because I'm the only Steelers fan in the league, and I hadn't had a Steelers player up to that point. They knew I was getting antsy, so they stole him from me. But yeah, I'm down for this DJ comeback season. I think it's just a rising tide floats all boats type situation. Kenny Pickett's going to be better, and this offense is going to be better. And is the play calling going to be perfect under Matt Canada? I don't know. We'll see. Do they have the players that can overcome play calling a little bit more than they did last year, and probably just make plays even if things break down? Yeah, I think so. I think the Kenny Pickett to George Pickens back shoulder throw or 50-50 ball is one of the more high percentage plays in football. And they're gonna throw that ball a lot. So they're gonna have to change the term 50-50 ball in Pittsburgh, because it's not 50-50 when George Pickens is on one end of that. So that's gonna be fun to see there. I've had some requests here for putting the contest link into the comment section, so I just did that if you're listening. So look for that from Steel Curtain Network, I think is what it'll pop up in the chat box. So take a look at that. I'm seeing not really a question about it, but I'm seeing a lot of talk about Brock Purdy in this game. Some saying that they're not sure if he's a true test for this defense at quarterback. Is he going to be a guy for them? Their offensive line struggles, especially at right tackle for the Niners. There's some issues there. So there's some concern maybe that Brock's going to be under a lot of pressure. Concern for 49ers fans and some excitement for Steelers fans. Do you think Brock Purdy is what the 49ers want him to be, or is this a guy that by the end of the season we're going to be the Kenny Pickett or Brock Purdy conversation is not going to really be one anymore?
I think that with Brock Purdy, is he back yet? Is he going to be really him? That's going to be the question, I think. Is he going to be him for a full game? He hasn't played a full game this preseason. Obviously he wasn't going to play a full game, but he was on limited snaps. I think that there was even a situation where his surgery was pushed back a couple of weeks because of inflammation, and there was some concern and worry that he was going to be back. I think they might have him on a pitch count, and run the ball a little bit more than we would expect him to. So I don't really think he's going to be a factor there. As far as seeing Steelers defense with the speed that they have, I think it's going to be a good challenge. It's going to be a good challenge, not just for them, but for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because outside of the question mark about their quarterback situation and if he's back from the Tommy surgery,
Tommy
and
John, yeah, it
yeah,
was same deal that Roethlisberger had, but to a lesser degree, I believe.
right.
It was that ulnar ligament or whatever whatever it is. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
Yeah. So, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think he's going to be, trying for like 40 pass attempts
yeah,
because of that. I think they're going to limit him. And, if the defense can do their part and if the Steelers can get up in front, I think they can handle this game.
yeah. I think the Steelers like facing heavy play action teams because it means the quarterback's back is to the rusher. And I don't know if you've noticed this in a lot of Steelers Ravens matchups, but all of the RPOs that the team would run where Lamar's like, reading the defensive end or whatever to see if he's going to hand the ball off or tuck it to throw. Every time Lamar Jackson hands the ball off, a Steelers player would hit him if it was within the legal limit of doing so, the legal parameters of doing so. It wasn't like 5 steps later or anything like that. But if it was a close read and there's somebody in the backfield, there's a Steelers pass rusher putting a pop on Lamar Jackson, reminding him, saying, hey, if you keep this one of these times, then you're going down because I'm here. I'm just reminding you that. And I think the Steelers like that. They can pin their ears back as a pass rush the way they play football on these play action passes. And I think with this linebacker core to hopefully be able to clean up behind the defensive line on running plays, that these edge rushers can just, like I said, pin their ears back and go after quarterbacks. I think it matches up really well, this Shanahan offense with the Steelers in week 1. We will see. But along those lines with the pass rush, we got a question here from David Sears. Does TJ Watt break the sack record this year? I'm going to go with that he means the NFL sack record, so 22.5 sacks that he tied 2 years ago in his Defensive Player of the Year campaign, tied with Michael Strahan. Does he break that sack record this year? Daniel, give me your prediction on this one.
If he stays healthy, I think there's a good opportunity for him to do so. The year that he broke it, it was the same year that he was getting his contract, which didn't get done until very close to the season starting.
Yeah.
And so he had a lot of like soft tissue type of injuries. And, that really plagued him throughout that season. And he missed a few games. So if he comes back to that caliber that he was and can maintain his health, I do think they have an opportunity to at least tie it. Now, the other thing about that season was, the offense wasn't doing so great. So there was a lot more opportunities for him to get sacks because the defense was on the field all the time. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think the Steelers offense is going to be moving in the right direction. And I feel that it's going to give for less opportunity, but I still think he gets either very close, ties it. I think he has an opportunity to pass it if he stays healthy. I wouldn't have passed him, but I don't know, man, because Alex Highsmith is going to get some sacks too.
Yeah.
That would take away from him. It's a tough one. What do you think?
I'm going to say no, but I'm going to say 17, 18, 19 sacks this season. And I think that's still a fantastic year. I mean, it doesn't have to start with a 2 in the double-digit sacks department for it to be a great season for TJ Watt, especially when you consider the other pieces in the pass rush. I think he's going to be rotated out maybe a little bit more to keep him fresher. That might help with him when he's on the field being a little bit more effective too. I don't know, but we'll see. I just don't think, a 22.5 sack season, 23 sacks, that's a special season. That's not something that nobody's just firing off 20 plus sack seasons every year. So I think it's going to be tough for him to get there with the help he's got, but maybe also it plays into it that the Steelers might have some more leads this year. So teams are having to throw the ball a little bit more to stay in games. So maybe he has more pass rush opportunities in situations like that potentially than he has in the last couple of years. So that's something that could play into this as well. But yeah, I
You know,
think
I'll say
a great season for him, but I'm not saying I don't know, 22 and a half, 20 or 23 plus sacks. I don't know if that's something that he'll get this year. We'll see.
I think it'd be more likely if Baker Mayfield was still in the division. You
Yeah.
know, he
Yeah.
I think he
That's
sacked
true.
Baker like 6 or 7 times a year. And so,
Yeah. In two
we'll
games.
see if he can do that to Deshaun. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll see if he can continue doing that against Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
He's proven that he can harass Joe Burrow. Um, you know, even Lamar Jackson. You know, the Steelers have handled him pretty well. So, within the division, there's a good opportunity for him to get a few there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's pull this question up. This is a good one. Are we confident with the secondary? I wouldn't say a for sure yes yet, but I like the trajectory of the secondary. I like the pieces in the secondary. But we got to see them play together. I mean, this is basically a brand new secondary from what we've seen, and you've got a lot of new faces in starting roles and a lot of new people working together for the first time. Patrick Peterson's never played with Levi Wallace, and Levi Wallace has never played with Joey Porter Jr. None of them have. This is going to be first times for a lot of these guys. And yeah, you've got Minka on the back end or at safety, but he's got new running mates back there as well. There's no more Terrell Edmonds. So don't be surprised if the Steelers are a little bit of a bend but don't break secondary. I think they probably give up some passing yards this season, especially early on. But as you get down into the red zone, into the where the field shrinks, and I just think it's going to be tougher for teams. And I think that as the year goes along as well, that they'll build more of a rapport with each other. They'll learn to communicate with each other better, as only happens when you play with each other consistently. If that happens, I think that this secondary by the end of the year could be very, very good. But I am a little concerned that at the beginning of the year, they might have their growing pains. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's to be determined.
Yeah.
The only person that I'm comfortable with in the secondary as of now is Minka Fitzpatrick. Everybody else is a little bit of a question mark, in my opinion. Even Levi Wallace last year, he got burned quite a bit early on in the season. Now, a pass coverage best friend is pressure, and I think the Steelers are going to run a lot of pressure. I think they're going to blitz quite often early in the season to, compensate for what they lack in experience, camaraderie, and chemistry in the secondary. So I can see that being a situation early on. I think that confidence will grow as the season goes along, as I also think that their play will get better as the season goes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Let's see. Let's hit this one. This is a kind of a flying under the radar deal for the Steelers, but Chris Boswell has struggled, especially last year. He struggled making some kicks, and there were some injury issues there. Bob Yeager asked, do you think Chris Boswell will make it through this year without injury? I'm hoping so. I think if he does go through without injury, that he kind of regains his form a little bit. That kind of under the radar, quietly, he lost last year and wasn't making some of the kicks that we're accustomed to as fans of the Wizard of Boz. I think he wasn't necessarily Mr. Automatic every time, especially as the season was continuing along towards the end of the year. But Chris Boswell, he's a huge part of this team because they want to be able to trust him to make those long kicks and be accurate and, get them out of tough situations. If Kenny Pickett takes a sack on third down at the 35-yard line, you want to be able to trot out Chris Boswell and say, yeah, we got 3 points. And I think if they have that confidence, and that opens up the rest of the team as well. What do you think?
Yeah, that one's gonna be tough because Chris has been hit with the injury bug throughout his career, and he's had some years that were bad. And I think that he had a couple of years ago, he had one that was pretty healthy, and he came up. I mean, he ended up getting a pretty good contract out of that year. So I think it's important for him to stay healthy. I don't think the Steelers are going to be trotting him out there for 50-plus yard kicks like they were last season. I think they're going to get a little bit closer more often. and a little bit more of those, easier type of kicks to make and not having to kick a 50+ yarder in the cold. I can assume that that doesn't help your injury issues. And so, I think that maybe perhaps he'll have that opportunity this year to not have to do so much work. But I don't know. You want to have him do a lot of work and stay healthy. I think it's a big year. If he ends up going down with some injuries, I think there could be about Boswell in the future or for the future after the season.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us in this episode of the Steelers Sunday night Q&A, excuse me. Sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions. We have run out of time here on the show, but we appreciate everyone who asked questions. There's going to be a lot coming your way from the Steel Curtain Network this week as the Steelers prepare for their regular season opener. So a lot of your questions are probably going to get answered in the discussions over the next week. Look for myself on the Steelers Fix on Tuesday. Andrew and I are going to be recording that a little bit later tonight. So we're going to do our big prediction show. And so come on down to see where we have the Steelers in the AFC pecking order, as well as our picks for Super Bowl and everything like that on the Steelers Fix coming to you this Tuesday at noon. Daniel, got anything to plug before we head out of here?
Yeah, tomorrow you can catch me and Shannon White at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Steelers Hangover. And Friday on the audio side only, I'll be doing a little preview of the Steelers 49ers game on the audio side only. So make sure you go check that out.
Awesome stuff. As always, from Daniel J. at State of Steelers. You can follow me on Twitter at TheBets93. That's going to do it for us here on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. We hope you all have a fantastic Labor Day. Go Steelers.